What are lab-grown diamonds?
Under the same manufacturing unit, with the same machinery, with the same skilled labor, these are cut, polished and processed. There are jewelers from the last 50 years, they still can't see and tell the difference.
What is the hesitation according to you in people's minds?
So very initially, when diamonds were not grown in labs, it was made to seem scarce. That is a creation by a certain cartel that controlled the supply of diamonds. There was one marketing campaign of diamonds are forever that was aimed on the fact that, say you were to take a 3-carat mined diamond ring, it would cost you somewhere between 27 to 30 lakhs in the not so best color and clarity. Come back to a lab diamond, right?
No.
Yeah.
Wow. The same clarity.
No. The best color and the best clarity. The quality of a diamond is determined by the 4 C's that we say in diamond, right? Which is actually the most important thing that people should see when they're buying a diamond.
Okay.
The minute you've bought the diamond and walked out of the store, it's depreciated in value.
I thought that was the case only with Jadao diamonds.
No, even with on the diamond, if you draw even 50% value, then that's great.
So this is a myth that
It is.
You can resell. It's an investment.
This couple comes to us saying that we want to make a diamond from the first mundan of our child. Hair can be burnt and the carbon can be used to make a diamond. And when we did that, we had a client in Dubai who lost her dog. She sent her ashes. We got it manufactured and we got it when PM Modi gave that 7.5 carat diamond to Jill Biden.
Yeah.
Or when Rihanna. These are people that stood for lab diamonds. Everyone's perception then started to shift, saying that 45% of Indian brides are preferring lab-grown diamond jewelry to traditional jewelry.
Wow.
Only because of sustainable and ethical reasons.
Really?
After the Ambani wedding, like they set such a trend, I think, in terms of larger solitaires, emerald pieces. So we've done.
One of the most common misconceptions is that American diamonds are lab-grown diamonds.
It's a very big myth.
What if you could buy a diamond for half the price? One that's ethical, sustainable, and 100% real. The $100 billion diamond industry is changing. And Khushbu Bafna, the founder of Amarani Atelier, is leading the way. Lab-grown diamonds offer the same brilliance, but without the hefty price tags or ethical concerns. So why are people still hesitant? Tune in as Khushbu explains how to invest in diamonds smarter, reveals the key differences between mined and lab-grown diamonds, and shares the secrets that the diamond industry doesn't want you to know. If you're thinking about buying a diamond, this is a conversation you just can't afford to miss. Welcome to Humans of Bombay, Khushbu. So excited to chat with you about all things a girl's best friend.
Thank you so much for having me here. I have to tell you that this is a moment I've manifested. And while I'm honored to be here, I also feel highly responsible to you and everyone who's watching this to be able to give you the best of my knowledge with my experience so far.
I'm sure, and this is a topic that so many people have questions about. We're going to be talking about lab-grown diamonds, and in India, it's still not as penetrated, right? And
Yeah.
up until I think the recent couple of years, there was a little bit of stigma attached to lab-grown diamonds.
Which is changing slowly.
Which is changing slowly. So we're going to talk about all of that, right? So let's begin with the very basic. What are lab-grown diamonds?
First, before we understand what lab-grown diamonds are, let's understand what a diamond is, right? A diamond is lots of carbon atoms coming together to form a crystallized structure under high pressure and high temperature. Now, when this process happens deep within the surface of the earth, that's when it's a mined diamond. But the same environment is created in a chamber of a laboratory where there's a small thin diamond seed that's used. There's a lot of gas infused, the same temperature and pressure created that grows a structure which is the same thing, has the same properties of the rough diamond that you find from below the surface of the earth. So when you see the two, till here the process is different, where one is grown in the lab and one is found deep within the earth. But from here on, the steps are exactly the same.
Really?
Yeah. So in a factory, under the same manufacturing unit, with the same machinery, with the same skilled labor, these are cut, polished, and processed. And when you get a final product, it looks exactly the same. You can't tell the difference physically, optically, or chemically between the two. And it's like saying basically you have a tomato that's grown in a farm and a tomato that's grown in a greenhouse. How do you tell the difference between the two? It's not possible.
Correct.
Or if there's a baby who's naturally conceived or a test tube baby, once the baby is out,
It's still a baby.
it's still a baby.
Correct.
So it's still a diamond.
So then why the difference, right? Like in the sense, not in terms of the diamond, but in terms of the perception that, okay, this is a real diamond, which is grown in the ground, and this is a lab grown diamond. Why do you think that's there?
The perception, because very initially when diamonds were not grown in labs, it was made to seem scarce.
Correct.
Right? I don't think it's rare. I think it's scarce because that is a creation by a certain cartel that controlled the supply of diamonds based on the demand. So it's very clear when the demand supply equation doesn't match,
Yeah.
people can draw any value to it.
Yeah.
Right?
Like when people want more of it, and,
Correct.
and you create that scarcity, saying that it's not available.
It's as simple as a Birkin, right?
Yeah.
Like you say that, okay, you have to wait this long to get a Birkin
Buy
and make
many
it
other-
seem like
yeah.
it. So, I mean, it's the same thing.
Correct. Okay.
So that's why this perception attached to the fact that, okay, this is, you can't find this.
Yeah. And, when it comes to cost also, right?
Yeah.
Dramatic and drastic difference. I was just telling you that I don't think I'll buy real diamonds. See, again, I said real diamonds.
yeah.
I don't think I'll buy the
Mined
original
diamonds.
mined diamonds
Yeah.
because it just doesn't make sense. We'll get to the ethical implications later.
Yeah.
But draw an analogy for me, right? Draw a comparison.
See, I'll tell you something. We've seen with history, as technology evolves, it gives you better products at more affordable prices.
Correct.
I'm not saying it's cheap. I'm saying it's more accessible. And that's what is important to know, that it is possible to get this without going deep into the surface of the earth. It's possible to get it without harming anybody. It is possible. And when it's possible and people have figured, and it's science, and when science evolves and technology evolves, it's going to give you the best of a product with a good price.
Correct.
An affordable price. And that's why there's a difference.
Okay, so let's take a engagement ring, right? Which
Okay.
is typically the most traditional form of diamonds, where
Yeah.
I think I think the origin of engagement rings goes back to the Roman Empire,
Yeah.
where also there was a little bit of a lock
Of-
in the ring.
yeah.
There's a
Yeah,
history
yeah.
to it.
There's history.
Diamonds were never part of that history. Just yeah, they were never part of.
They just were made to be a part of the history by a simple marketing campaign, which did pretty well
Exactly.
for the
It's
industry
the
for a
same-
long time.
It's the same as like Valentine's Day. Like we can go on that
100%,
tangent,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
But an engagement ring is something where typically a diamond ring is for sure bought.
Yeah.
If you think of it,
Yeah.
right? So give me a cost comparison, right? If it was a 2 carat or 3 carat diamond ring versus a lab grown ring, how much would the cost component be? And I'll tell you why I'm saying this. It's because people save for many, many years to buy that mined ring,
Correct.
as opposed to an alternative that is lab grown. It is sustainable, it's more ethical, you can't tell the difference, and it's there, it's out there.
You've given it out, like when you're giving the best things about lab grown right now. But when I have to draw a cost comparison, it's drastic, right? If say you were to take a 3 carat mined diamond ring, it would cost you somewhere between 27 to 30 lakhs in the not so best color and clarity.
Okay. Like in the, you would say mid-size clarity.
No,
and
I'd
cut.
say VS.
Okay.
with-
What's VS?
So we'll get to the cut color clarity grades, but basically in a mid clarity, not the best clarity and not the best color,
Yeah.
but good. You know what the market is buying today, that would cost you somewhere around 27 to 30 lakhs. Now come back to a lab diamond, right? You'll have a engagement ring of a 3-carat stone within 3.5 lakhs.
No.
Yeah.
Wow. And it's the same at the same
and
clarity.
you know, yeah, no, the best color and the best clarity.
So this is better in terms of color and clarity than this option.
Yes.
Okay. Let's compare it in terms of clarity, right? So now the lab grown diamond, we have far superior quality and far superior
you
clarity.
have all clarities, but it's the higher clarities are easier accessible than in mined diamonds.
Correct. So now if you were to get that clarity in a mined diamond, how much would it typically cost? Because right now you said it was mid-level.
Yeah.
How much
it could go up to 55-60 lakhs. Like,
wow.
It's expensive. People draw value to a diamond based on, say, the clarity is better or the color is better. So they can, the lesser it's available in the market, they can quote any kind of pricing to you if you really want it.
If you really want it.
So, and what happens with a IF or a VVS is that it's it's not found easily. You can't just go to a store and say, I want an IF or a VVS, because they'll take some time to source that diamond. And there are so many chains in the middle of sourcing that diamond that everyone has a certain kind of cut that they take on a piece like that.
Correct. Now, you're using these terms, right? Let's go into that conversation. Tell me about the cut, the clarity, those markers that are typically there.
So basically, a diamond is determined, the quality of a diamond is determined by the 4 C's that we say in diamond, right? That's color, clarity, cut, and carat weight. So now when we come to color, it basically is from the whiter to the yellower, like colorless to yellower. So D to F falls in the colorless category. G to I is probably a little slightly, still whiter but yellow. I onwards, it's much yellower. So that's in the order of preference.
Which is in order of
preference. That's in the order of preference. Then when we come to clarity, it goes from IF to I, which is internally flawless, to very, very slightly included, to very slightly included, slightly included, and included. Now, what this means is the blemishes that are present inside the diamond that are blocking the light to sparkle, right? Like the light to reflect, basically. Then we have a cut grade, which is actually the most important thing that people should see when they're buying a diamond. Okay, it is basically how the diamond is cut, the proportions, the symmetry, the structure of the diamond, and that is basically goes from excellent to poor.
Okay,
that's the range of it, and highly, like, excellent is the diamond you should buy, basically. And then carat weight is just the size of the diamond, which is like a preferred.
That's your own preference. It really doesn't. The quality doesn't.
Yeah, the quality doesn't depend on the carat weight.
Okay, so now when it comes to lab grown versus mined diamonds. See, I'm not calling it real diamonds anymore.
Thank you. Because it's real. Both the diamonds are real.
Exactly.
Very honestly, real is just what you make of it, and when the properties and structure of the diamond is the same, both are real.
Okay, so now when it comes to lab grown versus the mined diamonds, how do we fare on the 4 C's when it comes to lab grown diamonds?
So basically, in mined diamonds, what happens is the better the color, while the most important thing is cut, people actually draw price in color and clarity. Color being first, clarity being second. Okay, and there's a huge price difference, like huge.
Okay.
But when it comes to lab,
no, let's elaborate. What is huge? Let's
by
give context.
Huge, I mean that if it could be like, if you're getting like a VSG color, 1 carat diamond could cost you, say, 6 lakh rupees. A VVS E color could be 9 lakh rupees. Like, that could be the difference.
Okay.
There is a difference. It's a significant difference in the market. Whereas when we come to lab diamonds, right, you don't have that much of a difference. There is a difference, but say you're getting a E color VVS for 30,000 rupees a carat. Yeah. you can get like the lesser color and VS clarity for probably 25,000 rupees a carat. Like that difference is not significant. So that's why people will always prefer to go for the better color and clarity.
Okay. In your experience, what is the biggest hesitation people have with lab grown diamonds? Because now if you draw the comparison, a logical person will be drawn towards lab grown diamonds.
And which is what is happening.
Okay. So give me a little context on the industry.
See, I'll tell you something. There are a couple of things people are apprehensive about. Firstly, people think that this is glorified cubic zirconia. They don't understand that it's physically, chemically, optically the same as a mined diamond.
So when you say optically, you know, they have those machines where they check I'm assuming they're checking the color, they're checking the clarity, etc. You can't tell.
You cannot tell an experienced...
Like an experienced
jeweler.
Diamond, like a jeweler.
No, he cannot. He cannot tell the difference. There are jewelers from the last 50 years who've been in this space and they still can't tell and see and tell the difference.
That's crazy. Yeah. Okay. So what is the hesitation according to you in people's mind?
So one of it is that it's not the whole, like, we have to remove this. It's not real. Because it's very much real. It's not fake. There are fake simulants in the market, but that's not what lab grown is.
Correct.
There are other simulants, but lab grown diamonds are different. Okay, that's one thing. The second thing is, a lot of people think that the sparkle of the diamond will fade over time. But that's not the truth, because this is the same. It's going to last as long as a mined diamond would last.
And you've seen that?
We have seen that firsthand, because it's like saying that this baby will not grow and this baby will grow. No, both will grow. Both will be the same. Both will have their own journeys, but they'll be the same.
Same, exactly. Okay.
So it's literally that. That's one myth. Then there are people who come to us with the fact that, okay, can I give this back to you?
Like resale.
Like resale.
Correct.
Right?
Which is a big deal.
Which used to, let me say, it used to be a big deal.
Okay.
Because when you talk about the younger generation or the younger customers that come to us, we don't get asked this question.
Because there's a mindset also in terms of the investment is far lesser, right?
Like investment is far lesser. Also, their options to invest in are far more.
Exactly.
They'll never look at diamonds. You look at any financial analyst, he'll never suggest diamonds.
Go and buy diamond.
Investment. It's not practical. It doesn't make sense.
So tell me, right, is the thing like resale, is it a myth or is it a very large market when it comes to mined diamonds?
I'll tell you something, not only mined diamonds, I'll tell you that people who buy jewelry or diamonds, there's probably 3% of the people who are buying it who'll even come back to you saying that we want it, right? Like there's just 3% of the whole market that's bought it that will say, okay, we want to resell this.
Correct.
And what happens is, if there is a percentage of the market, when they want to remove what they have, they are in desperation to remove it. So they will
take it at any cost.
With any price you give them. So something, and this is an incident that I've seen in front of me, where there was a 5-carat diamond that I know of someone who bought for 90 lakhs, right? They sold it for 40 lakhs over a period of 10 years.
But this was a distress sale.
This was a distress sale. But even otherwise, see, there are rare and collectible items that you get at auctions, which is very, very high. That will always, draw value, because someone will want to have that and aspire
that's
to
different.
have that.
That has an emotional,
but
sentimental.
Otherwise, when you get like basically, if you've gone to a shop today, right? You've gone to any diamond shop. The minute you've bought the diamond and walked out of the store, it's depreciated in value. That minute.
Really?
Yes.
I thought that was the case only with Jadao diamonds.
No, even with mined diamonds, it's people will probably, like jewelers, to satisfy you, will tell you like, okay, no, we'll buy it or whatever. But it's because they know that the rate that they've seen coming back has been only 3%.
Right. So they know that in all likelihood are not going to really come.
Yeah.
Okay. So say it was not.
It's just like a satisfaction for a customer's mind, basically.
Okay, so say that I have no distress in my life and
Correct.
I have, we have those, it's not a extremely high quality ring, or
Yeah,
it's not
yeah,
some collector's
yeah,
item, it's not
yeah.
vintage,
No,
it's
if
a
you draw
normal,
even 50% of the value on that, it's great.
wow.
At least if you'll get the gold value back because gold appreciates.
Yeah.
But on the diamond, if you draw even 50% value, then that's great.
So this is a myth that
It
this you
is.
can resell also investment.
Investment though it's far from truths. It's
Hmm.
not an investment. But see, in India, the resale concept is there. You go anywhere abroad, right? Look at any of the global brands. They don't have a concept of resale. They have like exchange, but they don't have a concept of resale.
Correct. Okay, I understand that. Now, is there a market or is there a percentage at all with lab grown diamonds who want to say that, say now you bought a 1 carat ring for 55,000
Yeah.
rupees? Is there something like resale, or people typically don't come back because the investment is too low?
See, a lot of brands do offer resale because they're charging a premium to be able to give that resale to you. But how I look at it is something that you're buying because you like, right? You're buying, like today when you look at a shoe or you look at a couture piece or you look at any other jewelry piece, right? You will just be like, okay, I like it, I want it, I'm getting it. You're not going to think that 10 years later, this is what I'm going to draw out of it. Like when you buy anything else, you don't think like that.
Yeah.
And that's what the lab grown diamond jewelry industry is doing. People are buying things because it's looking good, it's looking exactly the same, it's solving their purpose, it's not pinching their pockets. And they're loving it,
Yeah.
and they don't think of it as, oh my god, tomorrow this is what is going to happen.
Correct.
You know?
Yeah. Let's talk about the ethical component of the two processes,
Yeah.
right? Which is such a huge deal. And I feel like if there is one reason that people forget everything else, right? Forget the cost, forget everything. I mean, all that is a no-brainer. Anybody who's logical should be drawn to it. But the
Yeah.
ethical component is so real. So talk to me a little bit about the two processes and how different they are.
So basically, I'll tell you, when you're mining a diamond, right, there's deforestation involved because you have to go deep into the earth, right? You're also wasting water because the water used in mining is then toxified and you can't reuse that water anywhere else. And it's dependent on fossil fuels for the process. So that, leads to a lot of carbon emission, which can't be reversed. And above all of that, it is how many humans have been affected in the process of mining. That is a huge, huge problem, right? And when it comes to lab diamonds, you don't waste land, you don't waste water because water is reused. And while there is carbon emission currently, people are in the process to make it fully sustainable by using solar power, solar energy, or windmill energy. And that's the reason why there is a massive difference in the way these are affecting the environment.
So talk to me a little bit about how many humans are affected, right? The point that you made. How is that? Talk to me a little bit about the entire blood diamond popular term that's out
when
there.
you watch the movie Blood Diamond, you kind of do get an idea to that. But other than that, you might not even know if you're funding human right violation when you're buying a diamond, it's used for wars, it's used to buy arms and ammunitions, it's used in war zones. And I think other than that, it's just a lot of people, there's child labor, there's unethical working conditions. So all in all, it's just affecting humanity, and I don't think beauty should come at that cost.
Correct.
Yeah. And there is a way that if the diamonds have a KPCS certificate, maybe that's not caused harm to humans, but it has caused harm to the environment for sure. And the best alternative is lab diamonds to
Correct.
that.
Yeah. Talk to me about your journey, right? Like, how did you decide to get into the space of lab grown diamonds, and how has business been?
Okay. Let me start with the fact that I, like growing up, I built a very deep and profound connection with our Indian mythology because I've been a dancer. I've, danced to the beautiful stories that we hear in our scriptures, and I found a very deep connection there. Cut to late in 2022, where I had to be on like a healing journey after one of my biggest heartbreaks. And sometimes that shakes you up, and it kind of makes you question everything in life. While I was finding answers to those questions, I found what deeply aligns with who I am. And growing up, we love jewelry. Like, I've always loved jewelry.
Girls love diamonds, right? It's just what it is.
Yeah, because we love all things sparkly.
Yeah.
And I just think that I love all things sparkly. And to me, that time, diamonds, like I was reading somewhere, and this really, stuck to me, was the fact that diamonds are forged under pressure. They are shaped from fire, and they emerge as radiant, unbreakable, and beautiful. And I think that's what we as women, and that's what my journey has been. By creating Amrani, I think it was about turning my pain into power with my passion for, diamonds. And that's what I loved. Like, I loved the process. I've had a background in finance, and, I've worked with very interesting entrepreneurs in the past. And their journey, like, while I was watching them, I'm like, dude, I want to love what I do so much, And while I was good at what I was doing that time, I think I was not as passionate about it.
Correct.
Today, when I wake up, I'm very excited to go to work. I'm very excited for what's happening. And also, I think the timing of me being in this industry was just right. Like, it was just, I caught on to this industry when when the country was ready to accept it.
Correct.
And I think everything just worked out and fell into place. And we went from a very small homegrown brand to having a store in a place that I've just dreamt of having one.
Okay, so let's talk about it, right? How did you get the capital? Tell me a little bit about the business, right? How did you begin?
So basically, initially when we started, it was very we had like people who were making this jewelry for us, and we would take it, and not always would we buy it. We would show it to clients and customers, and if we made sales, we would like, take a certain commission or
so you were a mediator.
We were like trading basically initially when we started out. But what I did realize is the fact that sometimes you have to do things that are unique and different. So it's all the capital that of course has been put by my family, and we took a bet on this industry because we had seen a lot of interest from people right in the beginning. Like, when I saw how people were responding to it, I was just like, okay, this is the right time to do this. And slowly we built like a first collection, a second collection, and that went viral. Like, we did great sales at exhibitions, at events, at personal, like we did like private viewing and all of that, and that did great. And then we were ready, and we were like, okay, because of this response that we've gotten, because of people now not only accepting it but coming to us to personalize, customize, all of that, we decided that, okay, I really want to have an atelier of my own.
Right.
It's not a store alone, it's an atelier where we really like entertain people and clients and understand their personal story and personal journey to be able to convert that into jewelry.
Correct.
And I think that is something that people are not yet doing in the lab space. We make bespoke pieces which are different, There are people who are doing a lot of basic jewelry and like, fast moving everyday designs, but doing bespoke pieces is rare. And that's what we wanted to get into.
And who's your typical client? Is it like Gen Z? Or is it
is a combination actually.
Okay.
I think we've made jewelry from someone 3 years old to like 80 years old.
Wow.
Like it's been a variety, but people come for different reasons, you know.
Okay.
There are different types of clients. So when we talk about the Gen Z, they are coming to us for, say, engagement rings, everyday wear jewelry, and also like a lot of women come to us, you know, today, like working women, because I think the percentage of working women in India has increased a lot, and that's so has their disposable income to be able to spend on
Purchase.
themselves,
Yeah.
you know. And I think that's so beautiful, because the idea that okay, this is also a sign of self-love and not only romantic love is really cool.
Yeah.
So we have people like that. We have people who are from really good families, but they are understanding the difference between the two, and they've traditionally only bought mine, but there is a perception change, there is a shift, and they are buying.
So
lab now.
tell me an interesting story, right? Because to break away from tradition, especially in a place like India, is extremely difficult, right? Like we have our preconceived notions that, okay, this is good for you, this is bad.
100%.
And with diamonds especially, it's considered a woman's forte. It's considered that, you know, you keep those diamonds in your locker and like, you know, how many
But
diamonds
that's
do you have?
not how people buy it anymore,
Okay.
you know, especially when I'm talking about, like, there are lots of stories to give you. I have one very crazy story of something we did, but I'll come back to that. When I talk about the fact that people don't believe in keeping their jewelry in the cupboard, they don't. Brides today come for versatile pieces of jewelry. Like probably you'll have like a choker that can become a bracelet and that can also become a big necklace. So if they want to use it in all ways, and in ways that, you know, like they can wear it every day and they can wear it for, say, like a cocktail or a
Yeah, because think about it, like, you know, when you have those gigantic you know, typical
pieces like these big sets,
yeah,
where are you
where
gonna
gonna wear it? Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And that's the mentality that they don't have, right? Like, for as simple as, there was one of our first few pieces that did really well was the solitaire earring that can get converted into a huge cocktail earring, right?
Really?
Yeah, with a jacket.
So do you have like a video picture? Then we'll insert it here.
Yeah,
right now.
I'll show. I'll send. I have actually got it here also. I'll show
Really?
you.
We
the
should
piece.
see it.
Yeah. So basically you can remove it, wear it as a solitaire stud, and then you can add a jacket and wear it as a huge cocktail earring as well.
Wow.
So the solitaire studs become like an everyday thing to wear, because how do you go wrong with that, right?
Yeah.
And then the cocktail earring just becomes something you wear at parties or social events, and that's the thing. People want to wear different things every day now,
Yeah.
because of social media, socializing, just, you know, even just seeing someone and being like, okay, I want to wear this also and this also and that
Yeah,
also. So
yeah.
I mean, the market is huge.
Yeah. So tell me the crazy story that you were telling me earlier.
So, you know, this is something that we, this was not a story of a piece of jewelry. This is a story of a diamond, okay? We also didn't know that this was happening. We were not sure, okay? Because we had never done it. This couple comes to us saying that we want to make a diamond from the first mundan of our child.
Okay.
And we were like, okay, because honestly, hair can be burnt and the carbon can be used to make a diamond. And when we did that, we were like, okay, so now even this is possible. We did it. We made a lab diamond with the hair that's converted to a diamond. And I was like, okay, did this just happen?
Yeah.
And then post that, we actually tried to make like a diamond even from ashes, which I feel like is so much more special and emotional than just something that's got from the earth, because you're holding a piece or a memory that is so important to
Correct.
you,
Yeah.
right? So those are things that we experimented with, which were like so fun to us and so emotional to our clients.
Correct. And did that work? Like,
It's worked beautifully.
Wow.
Like you think about it, like tomorrow, say we had a client in Dubai who lost her dog, okay, and she was very emotional at that point in time, but she had also heard of this from me, so she sent her ashes. We got it manufactured, we got a rough diamond made, and we got it cut into a shape of a dog bone.
Oh my God.
And that is so special to
It
her.
is. It really is.
And I think that's what people are now understanding, that emotions lie here.
Yeah.
In what is so personal to you, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that was very beautiful, and it was a very touching story for us, because it was the first time we were trying to do this.
Yeah. And it's also just converting something into converting grief or pain, for example, into something
Into
that's
that
extremely special
and it's
memorable.
staying with you, right?
Yeah.
Like you're keeping that part with you in some way that is special to you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
I
Talk to
think
me a little bit about the time process, right? Like, say that I come to you and we customize a pair of earrings.
Yeah.
How long does it typically take?
So it depends on the design. If it's something as basic as solitaire earrings, it can be given in 5 days. And if it's ready, probably in stock, then instantly. But when it's like the bespoke designs, right, we take about a week to work on your design and on your story, which is what we specialize in. We specialize in hearing your story and designing every jewelry piece that makes sense to you and is special to your story.
So give me an example of this, right? Like, what have you done? What have you created for someone that's like special to their story, and how did the piece of jewelry signify that?
Yeah, there's an engagement ring of a couple that we had made, and they met at London Bridge, okay, and they had like this specific moment which was like a proposal with like these heart balloons and all of that, and they wanted that entire story of their proposal, like not their proposal but like their moment of meeting, the first time, you know, you ask someone out and you're like, okay, you know, and that was a very significant moment because that's when they both knew that they wanted to be with each other.
Yeah.
And that's what they wanted to translate onto the ring. So our design included having like, you know, the London Bridge and having a heart-shaped diamond, and usually heart-shaped diamonds are very expensive in mind as a shape, and they're very rare to find, but we took a pink color heart-shaped diamond, which is also rarer. That's the way we built the design, and their story was live in their ring. And it's just how it
came together.
Yeah, it
we'll
came
probably
together.
insert an image.
For
so
sure.
that people can have context. Yeah.
So it's basically stories like this that we weave into the designs that make sense and add value to people's lives.
Yeah.
And make it very personal to their journey.
Correct.
You know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I love to do, because I personally also really value emotions and a story over just the fact that, okay, where is it from, or what's the geological origin of this piece. So I think that exploration and artistic creativity and just being able to craft stories is much easier in lab diamonds.
Yeah. Okay, so in your 1.5 to 2 years of the brand, right?
Yeah.
How has it increased? Like, how has it moved from year 1 to year 2? Have you seen more and more people coming in?
I think I've grown with the industry growing and the acceptance of the industry growing. You know, when I first started, it wasn't like we were getting rejections also. Like people were like, no, this is not this thing. And, you know, no, we don't want to, we don't look at lab grown.
Correct.
You know, in the right eye. No, this is like not, this is fake. This is synthetic. This is this. But over a period of time, as the education has increased, as you know, when PM Modi gave that 7.5 carat diamond to Jill Biden, or when prominent figures like Rihanna or Meghan Markle, these are people that stood for lab diamonds. Everyone's perception then started to shift, saying that, okay, what they wanted to understand what was. Initially, people were not open to the idea of listening to it.
Correct.
You know, sometimes it's not about whether it's right or wrong. Sometimes you just don't want to listen to the truths. And as people started listening to the truths, everything was like, it just converted like magic.
Correct. Into sales.
Because people were like then ready to accept. And there's a very rare case where people know the science behind it, they've seen the product, and then they don't convert. It's very rare.
Very rare.
It's very rare.
So it's amazing, because I think you kind of rode the wave as the industry was growing as well.
Yeah, 100%. I feel like it was like standing on the edge of a wave, knowing that it's going to redefine the shoreline, and if you can't change the tide, you have to ride it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
You also have a spiritual base for all of this, right?
Oh
We were
my god,
discussing offline.
I think that's been everything.
Right. So, talk to me about a little bit about how the spiritual component factored into your journey and into the brand.
I'll tell you something, sometimes the only truths that there is your connection with spirituality and your connection with yourself. And for me, this brand has been about celebrating my connection with the divine feminine energy. You know how I look at it? I look at it as when we in our Indian culture worship certain people, we are not worshipping their names, we are worshipping the virtues that they carry, right? Like, say you talk about a Ma Lakshmi ji, it's her positivity. Ma Saraswati, it's her wisdom. Ma Durga, it's her strength. Ma Parvati, it's her grace. Sita Ma, it's her resilience and patience. And Radharani, right?
Yeah.
It's her ability to unconditionally love you,
Yeah.
right? And we as women inherit all of these qualities,
Yeah.
all of them. And I think that is so divine and intangible, and it deserves to be celebrated in every step of the way. And if nobody, we deserve to, know that about ourselves and celebrate it.
Yeah.
And when these qualities come together and you're in your true divinity, you glow, right? Women have an aura that is that shines far more radiantly than diamonds. And I think that's what, like, we were like, okay, this is like the right place to be in, because diamonds shine, but women shine brighter than that when they are in their divine energy.
Correct.
And while there's a lot of talk about feminism, I'm talking about divine femininity, which is very different.
Yeah.
And it's embracing that femininity, that divinity that we are blessed with. At Amarani, what the name means is I am the queen of my own story, and I have the power to change the narrative at any point in time. And it's the celebration of the beauty and the power that women hold deep within themselves. And the entire brand story is about that. It's about not only selling diamonds and jewelry, it's about creating a community of women that we can celebrate.
Yeah.
And my connection with them has been so profound. And I think that is the only truth in life, right? Like, you're here to, as a collective divine energy, you're here to increase the energies and positivity and aura of this world. And it is very intangible and not spoken about. But I think when people like us who are educated still draw, I'd say, inspiration and belief in it, it can change and impact people.
Yeah. I 100% agree.
Yeah.
So, paint me a little bit of a picture of the two industries. It's the same industry.
It's the same
but
industry.
The two parts of the diamond culture, right?
Right.
The mined diamonds versus lab-grown diamonds. How big are the industries? How do you see it going forward?
See, the diamond industry on the whole is huge. When it comes to Indian jewelry industry, we've seen a shift of 3.5% in 2018, I think, to about 20% in 2023
From mined to lab-grown.
from mine to lab jewelry. And it's been quick, right? It's been like very it's rapid, the change, and it's only here to increase. But what I do feel like personally is that both these markets coexist. While there is a base of clients that will, get lab and move to lab and love lab, there's also a base that will want to have mind. It's like, say you have a vintage Mercedes car and you have a new tech EV Mercedes car, right? There's a market for both.
Yeah.
One is because they want to draw prestige value out of something, and the others because they want like sustainability, modern tech, advanced, structure, advanced design. So there's a market for both. And I think that is what is going to eventually happen out of this industry. There is a movement, and right now everybody is doing well.
Okay, both places.
Yeah,
You don't think that anything
in jewelry, both of them are doing well.
right? But if there is a 20% movement, clearly it's dipped for the mine diamonds.
No, I also think that jewelry in general is being purchased a lot more, right? It has dipped for a few, but I don't think it'll dip to beyond a point. I think there will be a market for both.
Correct.
There are consumers who want to have both. There could also be a market where the same consumer buys both. There could also be that market, you know?
Yeah.
So, I think there is space for both in the market.
And what are you personally looking forward to with the brand and with Amrani, not just in terms of, say, different kinds of pieces or different newer, fresher ideas, right? Like that you've already introduced, but in terms of education. Because education is the biggest barrier between somebody purchasing mined diamonds as
And
opposed to
lab
lab-grown
diamonds.
diamonds. Yeah.
See, I think education is a barrier, but I think that is also getting solved by the day. While there has still not been any mass marketing regarding lab diamonds, we are seeing that more than just education is right now buyers are open to listen to what it actually means. You know, initially what we saw was they weren't open to that only.
Like I don't want to know.
Yeah, I don't want to know. Like, you're in denial.
Yeah.
It was like that. No, we know. You don't know.
Yeah.
And now you're listening to it, you know. And that is what is bringing about the shift in the market. Also, what is bringing the shift is definitely a generation of extremely practical people who are an experience-driven generation who will come, they like the piece, they buy it, and then they will not think
Of moving
further.
back. Yeah.
And also they buy stories, this generation. They don't buy, like, we're here on a show that revolves around stories, right? And this generation believes in buying stories. So whether it's 200, 2 lakhs or 20 lakhs, they are buying stories.
Correct.
And also the option that this generation has to show financial flex.
Yeah.
So much more. So people are understanding that today we'll buy this jewelry piece or we'll buy this engagement ring and then we'll spend on this, or we'll also get this, and I think that is the thing. And personally, education, I mean, you talk to people, you show people, and that's the only thing that you can do.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's a mass shift that happens over a period of time. And you have to just sustain that period of time.
Right. Yeah.
Because there are brands that started in 2008 and they probably didn't do the best in the lab space, but now they're booming.
Of course, because also the industry blew right open at that point.
And also so many things, right? Like just public figures coming out there and encouraging and talking about lab diamonds. Like I gave you an example of PM Modi. That kind of shook the market. People were like then interested to know what lab diamonds are,
So how did the spike happen after this lab-grown diamond?
I mean, then people started finding out what lab diamonds actually are, right?
Yeah.
Like I told you, people were not open to hear what they are. When you explain, like you said, when I explain this to someone, any practical or logical person will be like, I want this, right?
Yeah.
But people were not ready to listen to an explanation. And while they were ready, they were still trying to, drive preconceived notions that they had around it. And also sometimes what happens is you listen to something and then you go and confirm it with someone who you traditionally buy jewelry from.
Correct.
And traditional jewelers are not going to tell you this.
They'll always tell you that you can tell the difference or that it's...
Or that just say that na nahi leo tame. In Gujarati, that's what we say, right?
Yeah.
Like, don't take it, And that's what happens.
Okay.
And has been happening. But I think people coming out there, the opportunity and the reach that social media has given us has kind of helped us change that.
Yeah.
You know, it's helping us bust myths. It's helping us come out there and speak the truths.
Right. So now when you talk about everyday jewelry, right? Like say solitaires, or like if I were wearing a ring, that's different. Has a shift happened with brides or families where weddings are happening, or is that still rooted traditionally?
Can I tell you that there's a Good report that stated that 45% of Indian brides are preferring lab-grown diamond jewelry to traditional jewelry
Wow.
only because of sustainable and ethical reasons.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So like we spoke, right? Like someone like you who is making a shift,
Yeah.
there are so many people like that who are not even thinking about just the beauty or any of that. They are thinking about the sustainability and ethicality angle of it.
Yeah.
While there is beauty involved, there's also this involved, there's also better pricing. Why should we not go
Why
for
should
it?
you not? Yeah. So when typically a bride comes to you,
Yeah.
is it the kind of diamonds that I see on you today, or is that traditional Jadao also an option?
Oh, I have to tell you that we do lab-grown Polki diamonds as
Really?
well.
Wow.
And that is a huge market.
Yeah.
And not tapped on market because it's not a global market per se. It is currently Indian. You know, like Polki or Jadao is worn a lot in India compared to the globe. While there are contemporary designs that can go global, Jadao is very Indian and traditional. So brides have been making a massive shift in their trousseau pieces. So say for example, something like I'm wearing, right? Brides will buy 4 layers of this, which is detachable.
Yeah.
Okay, so they can wear 1. When they want, they can wear 2. When they want, they can wear 3.
Yeah.
Right? And that is very practical. It's very beautiful and it looks heavy enough.
Correct.
You know?
Yeah.
Then there is also, in terms of Polki, right? The price difference between a natural Polki and a lab-grown Polki is massive.
Give me an example.
Like, I'll give you an example. Say you get like a 4-carat or a 5-carat Polki piece with like just diamonds or something around it. Basically, in Polki, the gold weight is high. So, gold weight will be the same, right? So, if something is, say, for 15 lakhs here, it'll be for 6 lakhs here, but the gold value is the same. Are you understanding? Both will have 5 lakhs of gold.
Correct. Yeah.
Are you understanding?
Yeah. So that cannot diminish.
Yes.
That will remain the same or appreciate.
Yeah.
Right.
So that is something that is a massive market in India.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's not only lab-grown Polki, there's lab-grown emeralds, gemstones, everything that's available now.
And typically it was such a coveted thing, right? Like to get hold of an emerald and to
100%.
source an emerald.
Yeah,
and
or
the
like
cost.
a Burmese ruby, or like a, you know, like some kind of like just
Yeah.
Russian emerald.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, so that's amazing. And it's good to know that there is a conscious shift that's happening. Like if the reason by the Wed Me Good report was that it's sustainability as a factor, that's amazing.
Yeah, and I was shocked to see the report, you know. Like I've been in this space and I was still like, wow.
I would consider cost a no-brainer number one reason.
So
right?
there's cost. There's also the other reason is that when you come to buy a certain thing with, like, say you have a budget in mind that you want to spend, okay, and you're like, okay, I'm not only getting this, I'm getting like 6 other things with it
in the same
budget,
the budget that you allotted.
Yeah. That is also a very driving factor. Like it's an underrated driving factor actually, because people have come in like that. They've come in that, okay, we want to spend this much money, but if this is this much and I'm going to be able to buy one piece, here I can buy 7.
Correct. Okay, so we have your very versatile piece, which you're saying like people and women love.
Absolutely love.
So show us how it transitions, right, and how easy it is.
Okay. So this is the piece, okay? This is how it looks.
And this obviously is for like a wedding function.
This is a wedding function piece where you wear it as a cocktail earring when you want to wear it. Sorry, I can show it in this ear because that is the ear curve.
Yeah.
So this is how you wear it, right?
Yeah.
And then when you can make it detachable and you can wear just this. So you wear it just as the stone, which you can wear every day.
Yeah.
So this is a colored stone, but what does really well with us is like say a 2 or a 3 carat solitaire,
Yeah.
which then has a jacket with it, and I think that is so versatile.
And how much would this cost?
This would cost like with the jacket up to like 3.5 to 4 lakhs.
Okay. And if you were to buy it outside, like if you were to buy it by Mind Diamonds,
There is, I mean, a cost comparison is insane because it could go up to like say 45, 50, 55, 70. It
Wow.
depends on the size of the diamonds. And in this piece, if you notice, right, the diamonds on the side are also pretty big. They're
Yeah.
like 20 pointers,
Yeah.
25 pointers.
Yeah.
And then there's a large stone in the center. Your centers only, if it's a 3 or a 4 carat, would cost you up to 60, 70 lakhs.
Correct.
And then you add all of this, it could go up to even a CR or more.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. What else? What else is like different, right? In terms of
So there's this, then there's also like, basically we did like a changeable ring also where we had like a pink heart and a blue heart. So the setting was the same, you just had to change the stone in the middle. Then what you can do is you have like a bracelet that converts into a choker,
yeah.
right? And yeah, I mean, I can't think of the other versatile pieces.
These
but there are-
ones we can
so
showcase.
these are
Yeah.
what you can do is like these are stones, right? I'm
Yeah.
gonna show you the stones that we have. There's this pink color stone which is extremely rare.
Okay.
Now this in a mind, basically if a mind diamond and a lab diamond is 10% the value of a mind, that is basically 1% of a mind pink diamond.
Wow.
1%.
So how much would this pink diamond cost?
in lab,
Lab versus.
I mean, like I said, 1%. So it could be 1 CR to 1 lakh. That's the
Oh my God.
that's the difference,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
Like it is insane because this is like not easily findable
Yeah.
and very beautiful when set in jewelry.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, so there's pink, there's yellow, there is I think blue that
Wow.
does really well for us. We've made that, and other than that, what really has done well is emeralds. After the Ambani wedding, like they set such a trend, I think, in terms of larger solitaires, emerald pieces. So we've done lab diamond, like the earrings I think you just saw are lab emeralds with
Yeah.
diamonds.
Yeah.
This is a lab grown emerald
Wow.
with diamonds. So I mean, there's so
It
much
is-
you
it
can
is
do.
unlimited.
It's like a playground, and you keep, having fun with it.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is a very different cut diamond. It's a horse-shaped lab-grown diamond, and you can basically cut a lab diamond in any shape, any size. It could be 75 carats also. It could be 20 carats also. It could be 10 carats also. So everything, there's a lot of artistic creativity and craftsmanship that is possible with lab.
Okay. So talk to me a little bit about how diamonds as an industry or the engagement ring, right, became so popular. Like, how did it happen? Because like you were saying that it's almost quantifiable, right? That the amount you love me is the size of the ring.
And I think that has to change, right? Because there was one marketing campaign of diamonds are forever that was aimed on the fact that they'll continue to shine, which they do. And then there was like diamonds are love, diamonds are a woman's best friend.
Yeah.
And like to be able to, woo a woman, you have to buy her like a large size diamond. And that's the thing that has to change. Like, love is not in the size of a diamond. It's an emotion, it's a moment, it's a story, it's a value you attach to a person, and so many other things other than a size of a diamond, right?
Yeah.
But it was that one marketing campaign that kind of blew up. But it's changing, and people are changing, and I think people are understanding that love doesn't have to be expensive. It can be affordable and beautiful
At the same time.
Yeah. With the access to media, with the access to people who really read up and understand and know things, it's changing.
Yeah.
People have their own opinions. It's a generation of opinionated people.
Correct.
And well so, because it's high time, you
Yeah.
know. It's high time people make choices that align with them.
Yeah. And when you take it from there to also myths that are attached, right? Like we spoke about so many of them that most people look at, like, say, clarity instead of actually the cut. There are so many
Correct.
different things. One of the most common misconceptions is that American diamonds are lab grown diamonds. What do you want to say about that?
I think, again, right, it's a very big myth because American diamonds are simulants. Okay, they don't have the same structure, properties of physical, I'd say, yeah, basically properties of physical structure that a diamond would have, right? They are not as hard. They are not as, they don't hold the thermal conductivity. Just the facts are that diamonds are the hardest natural material that is found
Yeah.
in earth, right?
Yeah.
This is true for both lab made and mine
Mine.
diamonds.
Yeah.
They hold very high thermal conductivity. Now these simulants don't necessarily hold thermal conductivity, nor are they hard. They can crack, they can probably have scratches, they can break
Correct.
over a period of time. They are crystals.
Hmm.
Whereas these are diamonds.
Yeah.
You can't break them.
Correct. Exactly. So there's an important
There
like,
is a
difference.
very
Yeah.
big difference.
Okay.
There is a very, very big difference. They are, I mean, people need to understand that diamonds are diamonds, and the real diamonds are now in two categories. Real diamonds have mined and lab.
That's it.
That's it.
Okay. Okay.
That's what it is. And the other American diamonds have like 4 or 5 categories, but those are American diamonds. But real diamonds are mine diamonds and lab diamonds.
Okay, amazing. So we're at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Any piece of advice, right? Because so many people, especially now, it's the wedding season when this episode comes out. There are so many people who are making these decisions,
Right.
and these are usually decisions that people make with a lot of pre-planning, a lot of let me plan my finances. We need to set aside a certain budget for. Say the jewelry
Yeah.
that's there in the wedding, and very often that actually takes a toll on
Correct.
a lot of
Correct.
families. So what are your parting thoughts on this entire space, and how should people approach it?
I mean, I think that like what's happening, right? People are buying pieces that are not only for the day of the wedding, they are buying pieces that they'll keep using.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the best decisions that today's generation is making. Also, I think you can never go wrong with solitaires, right?
Yeah.
You must own them because you love them and you'll keep passing them down. And when I talk about passing them down, when we address, say, heirloom, right? Even if I bought a lab solitaire and I give it to my granddaughter, right? That's still going to have so much emotional value because it's come from me and my energy.
Correct.
It's not whether it's lab or mine.
Yeah.
So I think just owning pieces which you can pass down as heirloom are beautiful, and you should own them and you should buy them.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. It was so lovely, Khushbu. I learned a lot, and I hope people see it.
I hope you've converted also.
There's no conversion required. It's not like I was never a purchaser, but I would love to explore because they do look so pretty.
They do.
Yeah, but the whole thing is just a no-brainer. So I hope that people really resonate with this. They make the more ethical, the more sustainable choice.
Yeah.
And I wish you all the best because
Thank
I
you
think that
so
you're doing
much.
amazingly well on so many different fronts.
Thank
and
you so much.
I'm excited to see your journey.
Thank you. I can't wait to do more of this with you.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you. Thank you for being the best community, and we'll see you in the next one.